Hello and welcome to CEO Diaries. For those of you who join every week, you will notice that Lauren is not with us today and that this CEO Diaries session is something that we're actually calling a takeover of myself, Flora. I'm head of marketing at Future Females, and the wonderful Cerina, who is our COO. So I'm personally very excited about this session because we're going to be talking about operations, specifically the role of Chief Operations Officer within a company. And we're going to be talking, obviously, to Cerina, asking her lots of questions about her role in Future Females, and talking about what it means as an entrepreneur or a businesswoman when you're diving into the role of operations within your business. What does that actually look like? Because for a lot of us, if you're starting a business and you're a one-man band, you're a solo entrepreneur, or maybe you've got one or two team members, but you're not a huge team, then operations is still a big role. And I think it's important that we sort of unpack that a bit and dive into it a little bit. So thank you, Cerina, for joining me for this CEO Diaries takeover.
Yes, it's so funny, guys. I attended another actually an event in Namibia the other day, and the ambassador were chatting about how we all have our little quirks and we kind of know each other. And she said, this is how Cerina always is, and this is how Lauren is. And she's and Lauren has always her hair so sexy to the side. And then just as I got ready for this, I was like, shit, my hair was cleanly washed, but it doesn't look nice. And I was like, let me just put it to the side. And I was like, gosh, this is like being Lauren. This is representing Lauren in a little bit, right? But yes, I am also very excited to chat about this because I think for a lot of the women here, you might be solo entrepreneurs, or you might be wondering about who's your first hire, or where does operation kind of fit into your business, or you have an operations person, but you don't know what is this person actually responsible for. And so to just be sharing with you how we kind of tackled it and worked through it and where we are today. And let's go.
Yay. I'm excited. Thank you. Before we dive in officially to questions, and just for those of you joining, this is very much going to be an interview vibe. I've been sitting here thinking about all the things that I would want to know if I was starting again now. And we'll be throwing those questions to Cerina. But those of you who come here regularly and join us on a Wednesday for CEO Diaries, you'll know we always give a prize. And it's to try and encourage as much engagement from you wherever you're viewing. I know we're live streaming right now. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. And wherever you're joining, please feel free to ask questions. We will be announcing a winner at the end. And the prize is our Level Up Launch Library, which it's actually one of my favorite Future Females products. It's a portal full of all the content you need when you're launching. So whether that's a product or starting a new business, it looks at what you need to be thinking about from a social media point of view, what you need to be thinking about from a business strategy point of view, from a planning point of view, obviously from an operational point of view. We have an amazing Trello board in there, which basically takes you through our operational back end of what we do when we're launching. So yeah, lots of really, really awesome content. So for those of you who are starting out or about to launch something new, then definitely chat away in the comments, ask us questions, and we will obviously be reading them and popping them up onto the screen too as we go through. So yeah, get stuck in. Cool. And with that, I think, let's dive in. My first question is, what does the COO role look like in a company similar to Future Females? What does that actually look like? I think we've got a very small delay.
Yeah, but I think we're good. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. I think that's a very good question to start with, Flora. And I specifically that part about, in a company like Future Females. And I think for those of you listening or being part, like we said before, you might be a solo entrepreneur or a very small company. You might be growing a team and you don't know who's responsible for what, and can you give this to a COO, or what would this role look like? And so this is how it looks like for us. Future Females does not have a CFO. So we don't have a chief finance officer, so someone that looks after finances. We look after finances, and we have outsourced accountants, right? And if you follow us quite a bit, you would have heard us speak about the outsourcing, right? And what kind of like tasks or services we would recommend that you outsource, and accounting would be one of that. That's what we do, right? We outsource accounting, but we don't have a CFO. So a lot of like the CFO role would fall under the COO. This is a decision between the CEO and the COO. And I must admit that even for Lauren and myself, it is a little bit blurred, I want to say. There's some accounting things that I just do, but there's like where CFO would have made the decision that Lauren and I still get together and we'll make these decisions together, right? Or like budgeting things that Lauren takes a lot from the marketing, and we do management accounting on that with forecasts and stuff. So that all the accounting falls under me. But because Future Females doesn't have a CFO, a lot of like the accounting stuff falls under the COO role, right? The other thing that we also, Future Females, recommend is an outsourced service to startups is the HR, right? We don't outsource, and we don't have an HR manager in Future Females. So the responsibilities falls a lot under the COO. However, we've done two things in Future Females. Number one, we had a consultant only in our 4th year, guys. We had an HR consultant come into our company and review our documentation to kind of like, are we up to date? Are we just legally compliant? What are the new things that we might need to do, right? So we had someone that was a COO project, I would say, to just work this through with a company, do organograms, etc. But yeah, just to say that. And then the other thing that Future Females does under the HR umbrella is if employment contracts would fall under HR, and then it would actually then fall under me because it's not an HR manager, we do have managers that's also responsible for employee contracts. And I could use an example here with Flora, where this is what she did recently, is like when she got new interns, she would have a template to this contract, and she would complete this, right? And she signs it with them. She negotiates, she speaks with us, get confirmation, but she uses this template. She signs it, she sends it to us so that we can file it, update employee data sheet, etc. So that makes it a little bit easier when you grow also. But in a nutshell, the HR then is also kind of like a responsibility of the COO. And HR is a lot of things, right? Yes, it has employee management, it has payroll, monthly payments, it has negotiations, it has leave, it has performance approvals, performance management, right? I won't do all of it, but to make sure that this is done. How is it done? Has it been done? What is the feedback? How are we incorporating that? Or that process then, right? It also has to do with culture, right? And I also want to say how we in Future Females does it. We're very much a team. And I think if you all have been part of us, or if you're new, or if you've been part of us, you will know this a little bit, that we incorporate the team in a lot of things. So as Flora will sit here next to me, she knows that I'm not the one that created our culture, and Lauren isn't, and it wasn't Lauren and I even though it's now, you'll go like the COO influences culture building, or like all of those things. How we did it was the team, and it's even the team's.
Hello? I think we've got a little pause from Cerina there. Can you hear us, C? Maybe just to add on, we've got a really nice comment here in the chat. C, can you hear us? I think we have got a slight delay.
Yeah,
You seem
I
to be
lost
back
you,
now, though.
Flora. I don't know if I'm back now.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Okay, cool. I also just closed everything that I possibly can.
Nice. Cool. So maybe then just to add on a little bit to this, we got a really nice comment from Jackie Lee in the chat here, which basically asks, COO versus operations manager, what would you say the difference is? And I think that's a really nice one, especially when it comes to small businesses, because you are so often basically doing every single role.
I did lose you a little bit there, Flora, but can you hear me properly or no?
I can hear you perfectly. There is a little pause between us speaking, but I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I think there I can hear you perfectly too. So the question that was posted was, what is the difference between the COO role and the operations manager? Is that correct? Okay. So to be very honest with you, this is hierarchy. Really, I can actually just be the operations manager too, because we don't have enough layers in our company to actually be a COO. I don't need to be this. I can just be operations manager. A COO would be if there's, so many layers of supervisors, senior supervisor, manager, junior, and then a director, and like all of these things. So, and Flora being part of our team will kind of like also know this. Like we've had discussions about that quite a bit in our company too. Like number one, we're not big enough to need all of these levels, right? And then all the responsibilities that comes with it too. I think I'm going to come back to this again, Flora, because I will talk a little bit about what led us to the COO role too, right? And then I'll talk little bit about how Lauren and my roles separated and we decided on CEO and COO. And even for you guys that have followed Lauren quite a bit, I mean, that was even a difficult one for her to say, hey, I'm CEO. And that, just that mental thing. So I'm going to come back to that a little bit more in detail. But the basic principle is actually that it could be the same role. And the only thing that really should differ or to separate or differentiate these two is if there's more layers of employees. Okay. So just going back to HR and culture is like, so this is under me, but there's a lot of execution. Flora is a super good operations person, but she's also a very good culture building person. So, and I'm saying this specifically because I would have said this even if Flora wasn't the one interviewing me. I would have used her as an example because this is what she does in our company. She's really good at culture building and consistency, which is things that the COO or like an operations person would want to do and need to do, but also an HR person, right? Because she's the one that make sure that the stand-ups keeps happening, that people update their trackers, that the morale in the team is good on a Friday afternoon with drinks and learn, right? Those are things that an operations person would do for tracking purposes, for consistency. It's also something that the HR team would do for like culture building and morale, right? So just kind of like throwing that there so that you know that, yes, it falls under me, but it doesn't always mean that I am the one doing it in our company, because that's how we're saying it right now. In our company, how are we executing this role? This is kind of like it, right? Then the other thing that falls under COO role is compliance. Compliance or documentation is a very big part of the COO role, like massively. And it's not sexy, right? And I think when you ask me questions about what is fun about this role, this is definitely one of the things that I don't find fun. But there's people that's really good at it, and they're so good at it that they don't mind doing it because it just flows, and they can just zone out, and they can be on their computer and then documentation, and the day just passes, and they can just move these pieces, and also like some of these people, they are personalities that likes wrong and right. So this is guidelines, like this is how we're supposed to do it, and this makes me know how I'm supposed to do it, or when I'm doing it wrongly, right? Also the company, because as you know, they would be in HR, they would be, you have to put in leave. So this is how you do leave, or like apply for leave. And like in as an example, in Future Females, we don't have direct line management go on leave at the same time. So now we, in our HR policy, we say, you must put in leave 2 weeks before, make sure that you don't have the line management go together. There must be 1 day in between if you want to go around the same date, so that there's a handover. And that would be documentation, right? There would be like forms that needs to be completed. Compliance would also be like, today actually we're going into accreditation for our to get our training material accredited. So what are the things that we must have for this? If we run a program, what are the forms that we're supposed to complete? What are the documentation that we're supposed to get in? How do we file that? With Poppia's compliance, massive compliance around that. How do we save the data? Where do we get this? Not only of customers, but also of employees. How often should we review these policies and procedures? One of the things that you guys might know about, but I'm just going to say it out here. A compliance person and an operations person would love a master list of documents, because that is a list of documents, trackers, spreadsheets that you have, that you know where to go to find them and what is the latest. Because all of you can probably relate with, hey, creating something new right now, if that's a Word document, if that's a letter, if that's a tracker, or like what, and you use it and you don't know where you saved it, right? So that's the one problem or like thing that happens. And the next thing is that, hey, you want to change it. So you just start a new one, or you change it, but you don't track like, what did you change? And like, especially if you're more than one person, who's using what? And are you using the latest version? So just on compliance and documentation, that's very important for operations specifically, because are we using the latest for the whole company? Yeah, just kind of like leaving that there, compliance. And then I just want to maybe iterate here. Tracking. Tracking is a very big role of operations, obviously, because it's result driven. It kind of have all the operations, everything that's happening. How is this happening, and how is this impacting the company? And are we growing, and are we looking at this? A very interesting thing in Future Females is that we are very marketing orientated, our company, right? So a lot of the tracking is actually mostly marketing and sales. So for me, an interesting challenge is I'm not the marketing manager, right? So I feel responsible for tracking in our company, but I must trust Lauren and Flora actually a lot, because most of the tracking are the things that they are creating and implementing, but I should be the support to, hey, are we going through this? Are we looking at it? Are we looking at this often enough? Are we making decisions on this? How are we running these meetings, right? Yeah, and I did make a note just to say this is a team effort, right? So yes, there's things that I do, but there's a lot of things that the team does operationally, which is probably, like someone else would probably say, yes, Cerina, that's what's supposed to happen for an operations manager and a COO. Like people are supposed to do it, and you just kind of like manage it, or you know of it, or you just support it. But yeah, I just wanted to say to everyone here that there is a lot of like team work under this role also.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's such a nice thing to highlight because, from working within the team, I feel that so strongly too. And maybe also just to touch on, I think Jackie Lee asked the question just now, about an ops manager. If they're doing really well and taking on more responsibility, then would it make sense for them to naturally step into the COO role? And I mean, I think that also comes down to like you say, it's like a team effort. So if you've got someone operating at a managerial level who's doing amazing, and you trust them, and they have enough, sort of commitment to the business that you know that they would be able to take on the responsibility of COO, then obviously that makes sense. I think the main thing to be aware of is that the biggest jump between operations manager and COO is the responsibility, because you want someone in the COO role that you can be really confident that at the end of the day, any decisions that they're making, they know that it's going to sit with them if there's like an issue down the line, or if there's problems, or when things work amazingly, all of that, at the end of the day, the responsibility does fall on them. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to have your team members sort of like grow and train and move up through the business and through move up roles. I think that makes total sense if you're a small business. But just to be really, really clear on the expectations and what's going to come with the having more responsibility for a role. Would you say anything else on that, C?
No, but I would just want to repeat what I said before about it really is a lot about hierarchy, COO and operations manager. It's up to you if you want to, if you only have 5 people in your company or 12 in your company, and you don't even, and you want to call yourself COO or just an operations manager. If you the solo founder and you don't want directors next to you, if you don't want if you actually don't want directors, you don't want to have like board meetings, I want to say, then you'll probably just say I'm the founder and CEO or general manager or like MD or whatever. But you'll probably nowadays people call themselves CEOs, right? So I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, and I want to have a financial manager and I want to have a operations manager, and that's what it is. I honestly believe, with my experience and just moving around in the world the last couple of years, that it's a personal decision around the title. How fond are people of a title? And a lot of people would want to have that chief on their LinkedIn, right? So that when they look for another job, or like when they want to connect, that people connect easier to a COO or to a director, or these things. So I believe that we currently live in a world where the title isn't as powerful as it should be. I know, as it was before. Like we give titles to something that isn't what it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And I say that with a lot of respect. I'm a little sad because we do misuse titles. But I also want to say to everyone out there, it is your decision, whatever title you want to create and use, and just live up to it. Don't be so scared about, hey, is it now ops manager or is it a COO? Like, if you're a small company, no hierarchy, no questions about what does the operations manager do and what does the COO do. If you have those, if you're asking that question, then it probably is one person already. If you've got an HR manager and a finance manager and a fleet manager and a production manager and a warehouse manager and those people all report into a COO, because they're all running operations in the warehouse, in the production plant, on the farm, then it comes. But if you are confused, then it might just be the same person. And also, we had that. Oh, Lauren and I met in our first year. We met someone who was like chief of networking. And we were like, what the hell is that? And he's like, you know what? I love networking. I love introducing people to each other and like seeing magic happen. And I love like to be that link. And so I made myself the chief networking officer. We were like, okay, great. So that's why I'm kind of like saying like titles nowadays, it's not like it was in the 90s or the 2000s, right? It's not so traditional anymore.
Yeah,
That's where I'll leave it now.
very true. Okay, but on that note, I think maybe now is a perfect time to ask you about your journey into the title of COO and the role. And yeah, how did that come about?
Yeah. So I think the simple answer would be my background is operations and specifically compliance, to be honest. So I am a food scientist by practitioner, if I could say that. And so I that's what I studied, food engineering, and I was in production, right? And so operations, stock counts, like operations from raw material to final product, quality assurance through all of these things, systems to make sure that, you know, this is what you get in, this is what you get out, cold chain compliance, exports. So they were like international audit requirements. And when you do that, you kind of like are forced to get to know the business, because in a quality management system, they ask like business things. They go like, okay, what is the vision, mission, and all of these things? And what are the goals of the company for this year? Because that all plays into the quality management system. How does the organogram look like? And how do you make sure that people perform to that, etc.? So that was my background. And I think when Lauren and I started Future Females, you know, those were the two things. Like they were things that had to be done, shit that had to be done, but they were also, you know, the sales and the marketing side, you know, and the branding. And so we kind of like just gravitated towards these two roles because it just came easy, right? So we were just like, okay, things needs to get done, and that's what landed. That's Yeah, I think also our personalities. I mean, Flora, you're so close to us, so you know, we did it. We did it that way, but we also had, I think, had beautiful exploration with each other, because there would be sometimes then that Lauren would like take over like a spreadsheet, and she would just, actually she does it still because she's so good at spreadsheeting, but you know, and where I would take over like some strategy, or like just remove us a little bit from, this is a challenging situation, let's just pause and relook at this, or you know, so the roles were very like intertwined at stages too. And then the biggest thing that actually happened was that our team started asking about titles and roles. And we realized, number one, that, and we kind of like knew this from the start, because even when we had volunteers, and so Sasha and Flora and Philippa were our first volunteers, we made sure that they kind of like have a job profile. And we also say that when we, you know, when we give our tips and stuff, but volunteers, that to have a job profile so that they know what they need to do, and also have performance reviews. Like we had that with Flora and Sasha and Phil every 3 months for the first year and a half. We met and then we'll go through it, and like, but just, and we knew that because at that stage we thought, look, they're young, they want this guidance, and this is like a new generation, so kind of like, but then also to kind of like just help them with what is expected in our heads, and also for them to kind of like act on. So in a couple of years then, like the team growing, and even though we had like titles for that, it just became more prevalent that people really needed more stability in roles and in titles, and like where do I fit into this company? And then Lauren and I was like, oh, now we really have to finalize this organogram, and we need to identify who we are, you know. And it was easier for me because I didn't have, it just kind of like made sense to me. Lauren as you all will know, she is who she is on social media, or when you see her on webinars or whatever. She is the creative. She is that crazy entrepreneur that everyone who gets the opportunity to work with her in a lifetime really gets exposed to a wonderful entrepreneur. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are starting businesses, but she challenges everyone who she works with to think differently, to work differently, to and so she is the visionary of our company, and the one that gets us together in a different way than I would. And so she is the COO. So that just happened, CEO and COO. I think also why it was so easy for me, and I guess also this should have been easy for her, but I know she had challenges before, but it was this Batman and Robin roles that we've had from the beginning. Actually, that I was her Robin more than I was the Batman. And I was totally fine with that. It was good. I wanted that. So that's how it happened, actually.
Yeah, and it works. Let's say that. Okay, so something else. I'm a little bit aware of time, but I do definitely want to ask you a couple more questions. So one thing I was thinking about a lot beforehand was, what are the sort of skills that you've developed and honed over the last few years that have like really helped you in this role, specifically in an operations role? And I actually just saw a question here from Rachel M asking about how you can get into operations with a PR background, which I think maybe if you can tie that in a little bit to the sort of skills and stuff that that you think have really helped you in this role, that would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a disclaimer to all of you, I'm not so good at operations. So what I want to share with you is what I've learned from myself with the lack of things that I don't have, which I'm trying to, but also when I see it in other people that I know would be very good at this. You should be able to work under stress a lot, because there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of things that falls under you. So there's almost like always things, there's never things that's done. And I know that's actually in every role, but now you kind of like feel like, but I thought I could finish this. And it's like, it's never done. It's almost always ongoing. So your personality needs to have a lot of resilience, right? Because it just needs to go on and on and on. There's not a marketing campaign that finishes. There's not a launch that finishes, right? This is like ongoing all the time. So that it's so funny. I'm learning a lot about dopamine at the moment, and how we think dopamine is at the end, but actually we should teach ourselves that dopamine is the process. And so if you're going into operations, that is something that you should get used to and train your body to function on the consistent dopamine and not on the reward at the end, because it's not there. That's so resilient. The other one is you should be able to work under a lot of stress. For me, that's one of the things that I definitely falter, or like I'm bad at, because I can't really work under a lot of stress. So you'll see me, and Flora will know this, I move in and out, and even out, in and out, which isn't a good support or a good Robin to my CEO, Lauren, right? So to all of you out there, so the stress, because there's a lot of these pieces, like I said before, because all of these things fall under you, right? So that, then I think it's really valuable if you work with a project management mindset. If you love plans and you work according to plans, and that you can kind of like manage this needs to be done by this date, by who, and your brain just ticks like that. Yes, you can have your spreadsheets and stuff, but it's almost like you'll go on, and every like the lists are just going on, and you don't even know where to track what, and like you've got a list for this and you've got a list for this, and like you should be able to accumulate all of these things very nicely, even if it's just in your brain. If your brain can kind of like play with that together. Someone once explained it to me like this. He said, and I don't think he was right, but I'm saying this to someone else. It's like you create, like he said this about me. That's what I thought this isn't right, but I think this is very, very applicable to the role. It's like you're very creative, and you take like the chaos that's there, and you create this into beautiful flows, right? And if you are that kind of person that can take chaos and all these ideas and put this into a flow, then you are right for this role. And just going back to this lady who asked about the PR, I would say, if you are that person that can sit in a meeting and there's lots of ideas and there's lots of minutes and there's lots of like back and forth, and you don't get lost in all of those things, but that you at the end you walk away with like those big papers and you put everything into one thing, that's going to be great. You're going to be good at this, because that's going to be a lot of things that you will have to do under COO. If you can't do that, it doesn't mean that you're not fit for the COO role. But I'm just saying, if you kind of like do that easily, trust in yourself. Okay, that's definitely something. I also think that you should be able to compartmentalize things as a COO, or in just the skills. And as I'm saying this, I'm wondering if it's really true, because if you can just work with everything, then it's okay. But it's, if you have like finances and accounting, and you have like HR, and you have legal, and you have, management reviews monthly, kind of like, you should either be able to compartmentalize this and just stay with it, and like be able to time manage it, and or like make time for everything, or give enough attention and not get confused. And I kind of like remember when you're sitting in this meeting that this was the last thing that you said. Where did you make that note? And all, and not. You should either be able to do that, or you should be very good with like your list of things, right? For me, I think compartmentalize is really good. It just moves you into that sector. You kind of like get into that space. You kind of like zone in, and you're present for that. If HR requires you, then you're present for that. Those challenges, those opportunities. That's kind of like something that I've learned, and that I really appreciate when that happens, if you can truly get present in that. So I would recommend that. You should be able to delegate, which is challenging, right? I think for personalities anyway, being able to delegate and trust people. I think one of my downfalls is that I want to understand it and be able to do it before I hand it over. And that has been a bottleneck for our company, because I would say, oh, wait, I can't hand this over yet because I don't understand, or I haven't really like all it. But actually, sometimes it's just better. And Flora and Sasha would do it much faster. Rukeya, much faster if I handed it over and they go through it and they go like, okay. And I'm like, wow, I just waited like 2 weeks to go through this, because this is like, so there's like a mountain for me. I get anxiety, and you just did this for me. And like, the business went on, and they were like, yeah, it's okay. So definitely delegation, and trust. And then obviously we kind of like know that, result orientated mindset is good, right? Because you are supposed to make fast decisions, or like big decisions, right? You need to support with that. So result oriented. And I think my last thing about the COO role is to trust your gut. I feel very, very strongly about trusting your gut, and what do you feel? And it's not always result driven, and you don't always have that data, right? But you trust your gut in some of these decision making. And in the COO role, well, my experience at least was around people, trusting my gut, more than anything that I saw. or read, got feedback on, like trusting my gut. And then the other thing, there were some things in big meetings in the past 5.5 years of running Future Females that I should have trusted my gut and just stuck with it. And I didn't. And some of them resulted in really poor things or bad things or like poor results or whatever. And the reason why I'm quite hard on myself on this, and I've asked Lauren for forgiveness for this, is because if I trusted my gut, I would have spoken up. And then Lauren wouldn't have, number one, felt alone in making this decision. But also, if I trusted my gut and spoke up, I might have prevented some of these things. And Lauren might have said to me, hey, you need to like give me more. Like, why are you can't just trust your gut. But she also knows that I'm a personality that talks from my gut. And that I would have made things easier for her and for me way down the line if I trusted my gut and spoken up. On that, one of the tips that I would also give to anyone going into this role is be confident and trust yourself and speak up. Ask the questions. Number one, if you're new into this role and you're thinking about this, get to know your company, right? Everything that's going on, understand it, and ask stupid questions in the beginning. You're allowed to ask these questions to get to understand everything that's going on in your business, right? But then also in those management meetings where you like, do I have the right to ask this? Like, do I seem stupid? Or my gosh, the entire team is agreeing with this, but I don't see this. I think differently, or like, this doesn't make sense to me. Speak up and share your view. I think specifically, and Flora might know this, specifically in Future Females, which is very marketing, very sales orientated, there would be things that I just don't understand because I'm not in that. And I'm a little removed almost. So if I speak up, it's not, even though I might feel, oh, I'm stupid, I don't understand all of these things. It's not that. It might just be that I ask the questions which they think is logic, right? Or they assume is just going to happen. And so when you ask those different questions because you see the data a little differently, that might be very good. So that's also a tip for someone new into this role.
Yeah, I think that's essential. Definitely. I definitely agree with that one. Yeah, I think that whole, that honest, stupid questions thing, it's true. Like people should be able to explain to you easily if something makes sense. It shouldn't be complicated to explain. And so it should be, shouldn't be afraid of asking those questions. Because also the reality of the operations role is that you need insight into all the different areas of the business. Like there's so much you need to be like aware of and feel confident that you know about in order to be able to make like the right decisions for the role. So yeah, I think it's so important. Cool. No worries. I know it's all good. Okay. Again, very aware of time. So I'm going to ask one more question. It's a two-parter. The one I want to talk about is the difficulty I find with operations is that operations relies on something moving slowly so that you can put the correct documentation in place, like the SOPs, like all that sort of stuff. You want a business to be moving slowly in order to be able to do that. However, if you're obviously a startup or you're in the early phases of business, you need to be able to grow and innovate and change quickly. I mean, actually, realistically, at any point in business. So it kind of falls down to the operations person to be the person who is like putting in place these like sort of structures and stuff that the team's going to need, and that the business is going to need, whilst also being aware of the fact that you don't want to hinder the business by holding it back whilst you're putting these structures in place. How have you navigated that? And the other part of the question that I want to loop in is basically, operations is quite a messy role, I find, because there are so many parts to it. And so often I feel like it's that role in the business where it's quite easy to be like, and I think this even about myself, I'm like, if I'm doing marketing operations, I'm like, what am I actually, because the thing is, I'm spending the whole day going from like this place to this place, putting this thing here, setting up tracking thing, like you're doing all these sort of like little bits and bobs that need to be done in order to like make the systems work. But you don't always end of I don't know, of an ebook or like of a marketing sales page or something. You kind of end the day being like, did I do all those bits that I needed to? And so my question is, how do you know that you're doing a good job operationally if it's so hard to measure what your day actually looks like?
Wow, this is so good. This is such a good question. So good. Okay, wait. The first question. To summarize the first question again.
I feel like I've forgotten my own part of my first question. No, let me think now. Can anyone in the chat remember what the first part of our question was? Maybe start with the second part and I'll remember. Oh, yes. Okay. So Jackie Lee's reiterating the question of how are you measuring your KPIs for operations when the role is so complex? Oh, I know what it was. It was about innovation and growth, balanced out by the structure and processes that you need to execute the business well.
Okay. I think we have a little bit of a delay again, but give me a thumbs up when you can hear me. Well, actually, our video might be off. Flora, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can.
Okay, great. So there's no right and wrong. Yeah, I just want to say to everyone, it's every company tries to do this right. They try to do it better than the other one. They ask their mentors, their coaches, maybe from their previous company, they try to do this differently. You never completely get it right. One of the biggest challenges for Lauren and I come from this operations background. So I was like, look, when we started, everything that we do must be documented. And so it's easier for us because, number one, this will make scaling easier one day. Number two, the people in our team knows what to do. Number three, we have to have these policies and guidelines because whoever joins our team needs to get training, or like for the ambassador program, because that was very big in the beginning. Like people need guidelines how to do these things and checklists, and Lauren was like, Cerina, none of this matters if we don't have sales and customers. So let's just focus on the other things, right? And so I actually just want to say to all of you, whatever your approach is, it's okay. You might not get this 100% right. Whatever you're doing is, it's building to whatever you are trying to create, because I know that you're just trying to do your best. I would say this, if I started over today, or if I start anything else, right? Sales and marketing is very, very important. But the moment that you are creating something or doing something, and it's something that you're going to repeat in your company, just make a bullet SOP or work instruction about this. And this would be something, Flora, or like everyone else, just you use ConvertKit or Kartra or like whatever. The moment that you have to repeatedly, and you think someone else might do it next, set up a newsletter, right? You go like, okay, either record the training material right there and save it somewhere, or go like, step 1 would be this, step 2 this, and just save it. And you go like ConvertKit training. So And so don't even make a big deal about this. Don't worry about anything else. Just get these things done because it's there then, right? And it's quickly and it's no issue. It's just there. That's actually what I would do. I would just actually just pause there, right? Because it's there where the challenges comes in. We're an operations person. We want to say we need this documented, and the other person will say no, we don't right now. But I would say put down your foot and say, even if it's just like this, right? It's going to be 15 minutes right now for a ConvertKit video, where later on it will be such a mission for someone, even though you, Flora, can do it now in 5 minutes. You'll go like, what, ConvertKit? Now my brain goes to go back, this, my time in this full day, etc. Right? So I would say do it from the start. If you're going to repeat something in your company, make a training material of it, either a written work instruction or standard operating procedure, just in bullet points, or a video recording. And video recording, super easy. Okay. And there's identify what are the policies and procedures that you must have in your company. You're a solo entrepreneur. Most of it you don't need right now, but then as things happen, create it then, right? One of the things that I love is I kind of like have this, but this is not my background, right? But you can maybe get that. It's like, what are all the policies and procedures that a company should have, right? And so as I build, or when we built, I was like, oh, okay, I've got an HR policy. I don't need a leave policy because my company is small enough. I got leave policy in the HR policy. Okay, so now, and then I've linked, but then I also kind of like, no, this is what needs to be created. Okay, so that's a little bit around innovation and SOPs. Is that okay for you? Or do you go like, no, Cerina, this is still frustrating. I know how this works in real life. Or do you think this can work, Flora?
No, definitely. I definitely agree with you. When you're having to move quickly, it's the best way to document any trainings that you need to, and all that sort of stuff. Like within the marketing team, this is how we do everything. We just film, we record what we're doing, we talk over it, and then you can share it with anyone in the company who needs to use it. So no, I'm definitely with you there. Okay, and then the second part of the question, which I think Udinus has also touched on. I'm going to pop it up. It says, how do you know you're doing a good job in the role when considering innovation and growth and balancing it all, and also obviously that it's so hard to track?
Yeah. So I want to remind you and just send you some love that if you're in an operations role, that it's not sexy. And like you said, Flora, like oftentimes in the morning in the stand-up meeting, you go like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to say I'm doing. Like none of this is like really nice. And I feel embarrassed to say this because I'm not, I'm like, say you're in an event, I'm getting like the food ready for the event. Like, but I mean, if you're not getting the food ready for the event, like there's not going to be food and drinks and it's not going to be a good event because that's one of our standards, right? So I just want to say that I acknowledge it. I feel it. It's hard for me also. And for any other operations person where you go like, I'm doing the stuff that people don't even always see and appreciate. And it's not sexy. It's not like the exciting stuff, right? But I want to remind you that is the ticking of the wheel. So that is like the wheels ongoing. Like really, all of these things won't happen without the operation. So remind yourself about that. And even if you're the one at that event and you're sitting at the back when the event is happening and you're looking at that, you just maybe remind yourself that, hey, if you didn't arrange that mic, most of the people at the back wouldn't hear about it, right? Or if you didn't double check that, the ripple effect wouldn't be to the success. So kind of like remind yourself about the small things that you did that led to the success of this big thing that everyone is celebrating, right? Because a lot of the time we go like, oh, designers, you did this beautiful artwork or like visual or like landing page or whatever. And credit doesn't go back to the person, to you who made sure that there's copy, there's a URL, there's like speakers who came in, there's like links to from the landing page to that, so maybe just not maybe always pause and think about the small things that you did to contribute to it. This wasn't going to be my answer for this question, but I think I'm just going to leave it here. I'm going to say, hey, pause and think about the things that you did that led to the success of this big thing that you're looking at. Okay?
Yes. And yes, go on.
And I think then I want to say what that guy said to me years ago, where he said, you are creative. Just because you think creativity is painting the Mona Lisa doesn't mean that you're right. Creativity isn't always in like art or in beauty. It's always also taking the mess and making it flow, and give yourself that credit too. So if things are flowing, if things are working, if you're taking messes and making it neat, think about how the brain also work with the synapses, right? And like these crashes, and then it just flows, right? If you're making that happen, if you are pulling off a weekly standing meeting with KPIs that's completed and decisions that's being made based on those results, you're doing your job. Okay. If you are reviewing monthly contracts to make sure that your employees are paid, and I know that Flora is doing that right now, that your interns are on, extensions and all of these things, then you're doing your job. Okay.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you, C. I know for those of you who are still tuned in, thank you so much. I know we've got people joining from all of the different platforms we're streaming live on now, but we've been seeing all of your comments and we really appreciate all the engagement. And obviously, I'm very happy to see that so many of you have got value from this session. That is obviously why we do CEO Diaries. Something to maybe just touch on quickly in case you aren't aware. So Future Females has recently launched our e-learning platform, which is it's an online platform and it is a community-led platform. So we have trainings and courses in there for female entrepreneurs and businesswomen who are obviously building their businesses. And we also have in there a lot of community engagement. So we've got discussion forums where you can ask other other entrepreneurs, other women in business, any questions that you have about your business journey. They're obviously also on the same journey as you, potentially at different stages, but obviously all moving along that pathway. And we also have our weekly Thursday morning connection sessions, which are actually hosted by the wonderful Cerina, which you have obviously had a taste of her beautiful insights today. But these connection sessions are amazing. It's an opportunity to, if you're building a business on your own, or you've got a small team, or maybe you're the founder and your team are all sort of, operationally below you, and you want to just engage with other women who understand what you're going through, and can guide you and give you support and all that sort of thing, then these are the connection sessions. They are honestly amazing sessions. So if you're interested, wherever you're streaming from right now, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you'll see in the description of this session that there's a link to the platform if you're interested to find out more. And of course, we can't finish off without awarding our prize. So this was really difficult because I've been like reading all the comments, all the chats, all the questions, and there's been so many good ones. So thank you to everyone who's been engaging during the session. But of course, there can only be one winner. So Jackie Lee Katz, tuning in from LinkedIn, we would like to give you the Level Up Launch Library prize. Yay! So thank you for all your questions and your engagement. We've really appreciated it, and it's been lovely having you here. And so if you just drop us a message to say that you're the winner, and our team will get back to you and send you the login details that you need to be able to access the Level Up Launch Library online platform. Cool. I think that's everything. See, is there anything else you want to end off on?
I think I do want to end off on something which I haven't mentioned to all of you. I think something that's really important in the COO role and operations is that you take care of yourself also. As we said before, this is a lot of moving parts, right? And this is stressful. And a lot of the times you feel like, did I even do a good job? Am I even valuable in this role? And so you should make time for yourself, make sure that you are taken care of emotionally and that you don't, burn out in just running around and like asking, challenging yourself and not appreciating yourself always. So make sure that you take care of yourself in this role too. And then for all of you in this role or growing into this role or like moving into it, congratulations. As we said, this is a very, very fun role because it's, it touches everything. Trust yourself, trust your gut, enjoy your data. Yeah. Thank you, Flora. This was fun.
This was fun. Thank you, Cerina. And thank you, everyone who tuned in. We'll speak to you. So next week's session on we're going to be buying back time and as an entrepreneur and a business owner, we all know that time is absolutely our most valuable resource. So we're going to be talking with Lauren about how you can optimize and create more time in your business. So if you're interested, make sure you tune in Wednesday next week at 12 p.m. again, and hopefully see you there. Thank you all. Thank you, C.
Bye.